A light bulb in California has been burning since 1901. Your bulb died last month. A Dutch repairman dropped dead on the exact morning of a billion-dollar handover, and his laptop vanished before his body was cold. A room full of engineers watched an electric car get crushed in a desert, while its drivers stood outside holding candles. This isn't a documentary about corporations. This is about what happens when one person builds something that threatens everything, and the shadows that follow them home. Buckle up. These stories don't get lighter. They get darker every single time. While the world was hanging Christmas lights in December 1924, a group of men in expensive suits gathered in a smoke-filled room in Geneva. They weren't there to celebrate. They weren't there to innovate. And they were there to make a decision that would quietly pick your pocket for the next 100 years. They formed the Phoebus Cartel, and they set a hard ceiling on bulb lifespan, 1,000 hours. Not as a guideline, as an enforced sentence. Engineers whose bulbs lasted longer than 1,005 hours were fined, documented, in writing, in records that survived World War II. This wasn't a technical limitation. This was precision science applied in reverse. There is a light bulb in a fire station in Livermore, California, installed in 1901. That bulb is still burning today, over 120 years on the same filament, still on, right now. Your bulb died last month, not because it had to, because those men in Geneva decided it would, and fined any engineer who made something too good. At its peak, the Phoebus Cartel controlled 90% of all light bulbs on Earth. Every replacement you've ever bought was scheduled in advance by people you've never heard of. Are you starting to see the pattern yet? This isn't theory. It's in the paperwork. By 1920, over 1,000 American cities ran on electric streetcar networks. Clean, quiet, no exhaust, no car payment required to get to work. Los Angeles alone had 1,100 miles of electric rail, the largest electric railway network in the world. 4 companies looked at that and didn't see transportation. They saw a threat. General Motors, Standard Oil, Firestone, Mack Trucks, and they formed a holding company called National City Lines and started buying the networks one by one. Not to run them, to kill them. Between 1938 and 1950, they seized transit systems in 45 American cities. Every single time, the same thing followed. Electric lines torn out of the ground, clean cars scrapped, GM diesel buses rolled in, burning Standard Oil fuel on Firestone tires. In 1949, a federal jury convicted them of criminal conspiracy. And the punishment for dismantling the transit infrastructure of an entire nation? GM was fined $5,000. Each executive was fined $1. GM's own files later showed their agents had canvassed over 1,000 electric rail systems across America. They motorized 900, 90%. Then those same cities spent 60 years of public tax money building freeways to serve the car economy that replaced what was stolen from them. You were robbed of your trains, and then billed for the roads to replace them. And the men who did it paid $1 each. This isn't just corporate greed. This is the story of a decision made in a laboratory in 1921 that poisoned the lungs, the blood, and the brains of hundreds of millions of people across an entire century. And the people who made it knew exactly what they were doing. Thomas Midgley was a GM chemist hired to solve engine knock. By 1921, he had the answer. Ethanol. Renewable. Non-toxic. Proven. Midgley drove a car from Dayton to Indianapolis on a 70/30 ethanol gasoline blend and stood before a room of engineers and declared alcohol had tremendous advantages. 0 workers had died producing it. Then, weeks later, he discovered tetraethyl lead also solved engine knock. Ethanol couldn't be patented. Anyone could grow it. Nobody could own it. But lead could be patented, meaning a royalty on every gallon of gasoline sold in America. Hundreds of millions a year, exclusively controlled. And they chose lead, not because it was better, because it could be owned. Workers at the New Jersey plant began hallucinating, seizing, dying within a year. The press called it the Looney Gas Building. At a 1924 press conference, Midgley poured lead over his own hands, inhaled the vapors, and declared it was safe. Days later, New Jersey shut the plant down. Midgley left on medical leave to recover from his own lead poisoning. At the 1925 Federal Safety Conference, GM declared no alternative existed. Ethanol was never presented, never evaluated. The documents proving otherwise were sealed in 2002 at the lead industry's request. Leaded gasoline poisoned the world for 50 years. Algeria stopped using it in 2021. They chose a poison over a plant because the poison had a patent. In 1996, General Motors built the future, and then they drove it to a desert in Arizona and crushed it. The EV1 was not a prototype. It was a full-production electric vehicle. But fast, silent, clean, 0 to 60 in under 8 seconds. No exhaust, no oil changes. The waiting list was longer than the entire production run. Drivers didn't just like it. They became devoted. When leases ended, they offered to buy outright. GM refused every single one. Starting in 2001, GM sent trucks to repossess every EV1 on the road. Drivers held candlelight vigils outside the Arizona facility. Some chained themselves to the cars. It didn't matter. Every single one was crushed. But here's the part they left out of the press release. While GM was destroying its electric fleet, a Chevron subsidiary called Phoebus was quietly locking down the controlling patents on large-format nickel-metal hydride batteries, the exact technology needed to power a viable electric car. Then Phoebus began systematically refusing to license them to any EV application. Toyota hit the same wall developing its electric RAV4, forced to kill the program. The patents didn't expire until the mid-2000s. Tesla launched in 2008. You lost 20 years. Not because the technology wasn't ready, because the battery was locked in an oil company's vault, while the cars that proved it worked were crushed in a desert. The drivers who loved them are still alive. Every one of them knows exactly what happened. His name was Nikola Tesla. And in 1901, standing on Long Island, he was weeks away from doing something no one has managed to do in the 125 years since. Give electricity to the world for free. No wires, no meters, no monthly bill. The Wardenclyffe Tower would transmit power wirelessly through the atmosphere, receivable by anyone, anywhere on Earth, with a simple antenna. 30 towers. Global coverage. Electricity like rain. J.P. Morgan, the most powerful financier in American history, wrote the first check. Then Tesla explained the full vision. Morgan asked the question that ended everything. Where do I put the meter? You cannot meter the sky. Morgan understood that immediately. He never wrote another check. Tesla mortgaged the property twice, chased investors across 2 continents. Nobody came. In 1917, the new owner dynamited the tower and sold the metal for scrap. Tesla died alone in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel in 1943, in debt. Not a dollar from the system his genius built. The day after his death, the government agents arrived and seized every notebook, patent, and blueprint he had left. The companies built on his other patents went on to build a $1 trillion metered grid, collecting monthly payments from every home in America. When Edison died, America dimmed its lights in tribute. They dimmed them using Tesla's current. In 1934, 16 people walked into Royal Raymond Rife's clinic as terminal cancer patients. All 16 walked out cured. Rife wasn't a fringe experimenter. His microscopes were published in the Smithsonian Institution's annual report. His 1934 study was supervised by university physicians from USC, not naturopaths, not alternative practitioners. University doctors under formal institutional oversight. His device hit cancer cells at their own electromagnetic frequency until they ruptured. Healthy cells, vibrating at a different frequency, survived untouched. 14 patients recovered within 90 days. The remaining 2 within 4 weeks. Not improved, not in remission. Cured. Then Morris Fishbein found out. He was the head of the American Medical Association, the man who decided what treatments lived and what treatments were buried. He sent someone to Rife's door with an offer. Sell us a controlling stake in the Beamray Corporation. Rife said no. What followed wasn't a scientific debate. It was a demolition. Journals stopped publishing his research. Supporters went silent one by one. His closest collaborator retired to Mexico after a financial arrangement that was never disclosed. The night before a scheduled federal trial that would have put his 1934 results on permanent legal record, someone picked the locks on his collaborator's laboratory. Every file, every specimen, every piece of evidence, gone without a trace. The trial never happened. Then Rife's own lab was broken into. Equipment destroyed. And the Burnett Laboratory, weeks away from independently confirming his results, burned to the ground. 3 locations, 3 separate events, all pointing the same direction. In 1942, a U.S. Court of Appeals found the AMA guilty of suppressing medical advances to protect pharmaceutical profits. In 1953, a special counsel told Congress directly that a conspiracy existed to bury treatments with genuine therapeutic value. In 2001, Johns Hopkins researchers confirmed that specific electromagnetic frequencies selectively destroy cancer cell membranes, the exact mechanism Rife built his career on. They never mentioned his name. Rife died in 1971. Penniless, obscure, 83 years old. The 1934 clinical records have never been recovered. They didn't just discredit his machine. They murdered his reputation, burned his evidence, and watched him die with nothing. Harry Hoxsey was an 8th-grade dropout from rural Illinois who inherited a herbal cancer formula passed down through 4 generations. Starting with a horse left to die in a meadow that grazed on wild plants until its tumor disappeared. By the 1950s, that formula was running the largest privately owned cancer center in the world. 17 clinics, 17 states, 10,000 patients a year at the Dallas location alone. So Morris Fishbein, the same AMA chief who tried to buy Rife, attacked Hoxsey in print for 30 consecutive years. Not once did he order a single clinical evaluation of Hoxsey's results. 30 years of attacks. 0 tests. Hoxsey was arrested over 100 times. He kept reopening. The patients kept coming. In 1952, Hoxsey took Fishbein to federal court for libel. Survivors took the stand one by one. People told they had weeks to live, walking out of his clinics years later. Then came the moment that has been almost completely erased from history. Morris Fishbein, under oath, in open court, admitted that Hoxsey's herbal paste cured certain forms of skin cancer. Hoxsey won. The court awarded him damages, $2. The FDA posted warnings in 46,000 post offices declaring his treatment dangerous. Then, on a single morning in 1960, federal agents padlocked all 17 clinics simultaneously. Same day, same hour. Gone. A USDA scientist later confirmed 8 of 9 Hoxsey herbs showed measurable anti-tumor activity. The 1953 congressional report named his case as evidence of deliberate suppression. In 1990, the U.S. Congress's own Office of Technology Assessment found credible evidence of positive outcomes in specific cancer subgroups. His formula has never received a single controlled clinical trial. Not one in over 70 years. In 1967, Hoxsey was diagnosed with prostate cancer. He tried his own treatment, and it didn't help. He underwent conventional surgery, spent his final years alone in Dallas, and died in 1974 without a single obituary. His clinic operates in Tijuana, Mexico today. Still treating patients conventional medicine has turned away. Imagine fitting every movie ever made onto a chip smaller than your thumbnail. No servers, no streaming, no storage industry. Obsolete overnight. In 1999, a Dutch TV repairman named Jan Sloot had actually done it. And he wasn't a Silicon Valley engineer or a PhD. He was a self-taught technician from Nieuwegein who had built something his investors said defied every known law of information theory. Something that had no category yet. He demonstrated it live. Senior executives watched full-length films play back from a fingernail-sized chip. Roel Pieper, former CTO and board member of Philips, resigned from Philips the next month to become CEO of Sloot's company. A BNAMRO, the third largest bank in the Netherlands, was ready to invest $50 million. The deal was signed. The handover was set. July 11, 1999. On that morning, Sloot would deliver the source code, a single floppy disk, and the transfer would be complete. On the exact morning of the handover, not a day before, not a week after, Jan Sloot was found dead in his garden. 54 years old. No known heart condition. No medical history that explained it. His family agreed to an autopsy. No autopsy was ever performed. His laptop, confirmed by colleagues to contain the complete algorithm, was never found. His workroom, always overflowing with notebooks and prototypes, had been completely cleared out before anyone arrived. Nobody knows who cleared it. Nobody knows where the floppy disk went. Pieper went on record. The technology was real. Its loss was among the most significant events he had witnessed in the industry. In the entire history of technology acquisitions, so there is no comparable case. A working demo, a signed deal, a handover date, a death on the exact morning of the transfer, a missing laptop, a cleared room, an autopsy never performed. Jan Sloot took the secret to his grave, and the grave was emptied before anyone could look inside. Most of these stories are about the powerful destroying the inventor. This one is about an inventor destroying the competition, and what it cost the man he was trying to bury. By 1888, Edison knew his direct current system was technically inferior to Tesla's alternating current. His own engineers had told him so in writing. So Edison didn't improve. He terrorized. He bought stray dogs off New York streets for 25 cents each. He electrocuted them publicly using Tesla's AC current, staging the deaths as safety demonstrations for journalists and officials. He moved on to cattle, to horses. He named the campaign, without irony, Dury Death by Westinghouse. Then he lobbied to have the first electric chair built using AC power, branding Tesla's technology in the public mind as the instrument of execution, not progress. Death. It didn't work. Tesla's AC system won the 1893 Chicago World's Fair contract, 27 million visitors. It became the global standard. Every power outlet on Earth runs on the system Edison spent years trying to destroy. But here's what it cost Tesla. Before the World's Fair, the Tesla had surrendered all his royalty rights to keep Westinghouse solvent through Edison's legal assault. He gave away the income rights to the invention that powers civilization to save the company carrying it. Antoine Prioré wasn't a fringe inventor in a basement. He was a former Italian Navy radar operator in Bordeaux who built an electromagnetic device that produced something no one has explained since. Documented, repeatable, peer-reviewed remission of terminal tumors in controlled animal trials. Not claimed, not anecdotal. Published. Peer-reviewed. Real. The Prime Minister of France backed him. The World Health Organization monitored the research. A Nobel laureate in medicine reviewed the findings. The permanent secretary of the French Academy of Sciences endorsed it publicly. The French government funded it with millions over more than a decade. These were not believers on the fringe. These were the most credentialed names in French science and government. By 1974, Prioré had completed a 4-story electromagnetic machine, large enough to treat a full human body. The first human clinical trial was weeks away. Decades of results, millions in funding, the most distinguished endorsements in French scientific history, all converging on the same moment. Then, the government changed. Funding cut. Overnight. No review. No explanation. The machine was never switched on. In 1978, the U.S. Office of Naval Research filed a formal evaluation report on the Prioré device. That report has never been followed up with a single dollar of public funding. Not in France, not in America, not anywhere. The machine sat in Bordeaux, and the results sat in journals. The naval report sat in an archive. None of it led anywhere. The device was never switched on. The patients who might have been treated were never treated. And the question of why it was killed the week it was about to matter most has never been answered. 10 inventions, 10 industries, 10 moments where something that could have changed everything was bought, buried, burned, or crushed. A criminal conviction, a $1 fine, a tower sold for scrap, a waiting list of drivers whose cars were crushed while they watched, a battery patent locked in an oil vault for 20 years, a lab broken into the night before the verdict, an AMA chief forced to admit under oath that the treatment he attacked for 30 years actually worked, a death on the exact morning of the handover, a laptop that vanished, a room cleared before anyone arrived, an autopsy consented to and never performed, a 4-story machine that was never switched on. And the future didn't fail. It was purchased, strangled in a smoke-filled room, dynamited for scrap metal, repossessed and crushed in a desert, locked in a patent vault until it was too late, broken into the night before the trial, cleared from a dead man's room before anyone could look. And the industries that did all of this are still collecting from you today. Every light bulb that dies on schedule, every electricity bill, every tank of gas, every cancer treatment that costs more than a house, every gigabyte of storage you rent by the month. The documents are real. The convictions are real. The patents are real. The death certificates are real. What happened in between? That's the question they built very careful walls around. And those walls are still standing.